everyone. Welcome to the fourth appointment of Design is a Conversation series of talk. Today's talk is about entrepreneurship, and we give a round of applause to warm Professor Stephen Gedeon. From Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada. And he's a friend. And he's a very, very bright person, and he will lead you to this really, really complex topic, which is probably the future of our society.
The future of our society, wow, that's great. Well, thank you very much, thank you. So, can you hear me okay on the person recording this? Is this all okay? You got good.
Sorry, No, I just have one more thing, which is like if you want to tweet for the one that are following us on streaming, is Ask Stephen G. Okay?
Great, well thank you very much. Abitavo a Venezia per 2 anni, ma ho dimenticato tutto. È stato più di 20 anni, so non ho parlato italiano per più di 20 anni. So, ho dimenticato un bel po'. So devo parlare in inglese. So speriamo, if you want me to speak slower, or if you have any questions, or if you want to ask a question in Italian, maybe I'll know it. or else if it's too difficult for me, or if it's too difficult for you, it's probably too difficult for me, maybe Matteo or somebody can translate. But this is supposed to be a conversation, so even though we've got the PowerPoint, and do you like PowerPoint normally? Or do you think death by PowerPoint? Like, no! It's okay. See, what I love, like, I've been living in Germany for the last year, and I don't speak German nearly as well as I speak Italian. And so at least if they give a PowerPoint presentation in German, at least I can pretend to read the slides, and, you know, it helps a little bit. So a little bit about myself. I am an engineer, so this is what some of these are for. So I've got a bachelor's, master's in engineering. I have a PhD from MIT in engineering in Boston, and 2 professional engineering designations. So how many engineers here today are in the... Ti amo, ingegnere. Yeah, okay. How come you didn't raise your hand? You're an engineer, right? Yes. You didn't raise your hand. You lied to me already. This is supposed to be a conversation. It's my students are students anywhere in the world, I swear. They're hiding. You guys tried to hide in the back row. I'm watching you already. So I had a 10-year career in engineering. I worked here in Venezia, Centro Ricerca Venezia, per Temav, Nuova Samim, part of the Gruppo Eni. So we invented new materials. And then I discovered that nobody cares about technology. Nobody cares really about engineering. They care about the benefits that you get from technology. And so I quit my job, got an MBA. That's one of the pieces of alphabet soup up there. I got an MBA in business, and then became an entrepreneur and venture capitalist. So I've turned around, or been the CEO of more than 10 companies. The largest company would have been publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, with 26 subsidiaries in 15 countries. The largest venture capital firm was a $100 million US corporate venture capital firm based out of San Diego. And all my businesses were in high tech. So there was a robotics company, a mechatronics company, a graphics company, artificial intelligence company, embedded control systems company, a robotic company, that kind of stuff. And then I became an entrepreneur. Sorry, then I became an academic. Basically, I decided that being a CEO was going to kill me. I started getting an eye twitch. And my doctor said, you have to quit your job. So I became a professor. And I've really discovered my passion in life, which is really talking about entrepreneurship. And I guess before I talk about what I think about what entrepreneurship is, what have you heard about entrepreneurship? Oh, you see, now I can't take my jacket off. I was afraid I was going to get hot. Okay. I'm stuck with this thing. So what have you heard about entrepreneurship? What is entrepreneurship? What do you think entrepreneurship is? Any thoughts? pick on the guys in the back. What do you think?
Making money.
Making money, I like that. Good. I'm a capitalist. There's nothing wrong with making money. You can do good and do well at the same time. You can help the world and still feed yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. It's certainly about making money. Absolutely. What else?
A way to express.
A way to express yourself, or a way to... What else can you say about that?
To feel realized.
Okay, yeah. It's high up in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it?
Kind of.
You know, you feed yourself, you get love and security, you know, you make some money, and then, all the other good stuff. Yeah. I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. It's all about the hard work. Eventually you get to, then you become a professor afterwards, and then you can self-realize. Yeah. What else? What else? Help me on it. What's that? Create something new. Yeah. It's about starting with nothing. Just thin air. And you don't have anything. You just start with what's between your ears and something new in the world. Yeah. So it's about creativity. Anything else? This is a tough audience. È meglio un italiano? Parlano più in italiano? Okay.
Icebreaker.
It's an icebreaker? Okay. Well, I'll move it a little bit. So it's certainly about starting something new. It's about being creative. It's about being innovative. It's about finding new things. It's about being alert to new opportunities. Anything for you, my friend. I'm probably the only person as loud as Matteo, and yet it's still not loud enough for you. This is tough. Now I see why you have to... I'll speak more from the diaphragm. So, but it's also about being alert to new opportunities. So a number of you said you were thinking about starting up a business, but the hardest thing was coming up with a new idea. But part of it starts with just being alert to things, just looking for new things. It's amazing how we as people have tuned out the world, that we're so inundated by advertising, television, radio, music. Like there's all these things. You're walking down the street, and there's all these things trying to get your attention. And we've become really good at tuning it out. We've become really good at ignoring our emails, right? Like your professor sends you an email, don't forget about something, delete, right? Yeah, I can see some, yeah. It's true. I mean, I'll tell you a story about my class. So I have a class of 50 students. And every year, they have to go out and find a company to work with. And so we give them a year's notice to say, when you come into Steve Gedeon's class, you have to find a company to work with. And so we advertise to these students. We know their names. We know all their names. They're students in our school. We go into their classroom, and we give presentations. We come in, we show slides. When you get into Steve's class, you need to come with a company. We send them emails. We put posters on the wall. We offer beer and wine and pizza to come to an event. The next year they come into my class and I say, so, who has a company? And guess what happens? Huh? Where were you? Oh, I must have missed class that day. We went into 5 classes. We went into every single class twice. We sent you 8 emails. Right? It's hard. It's hard. People are tune the world out. But if you're an entrepreneur, you have to tune the world in. You have to walk down the road. You have to be alert to new things. So if you're trying to find a new company, you have to be alert to problems. You have to be alert to opportunities. You have to be looking at the world around you and see, like, you know, here's a thing that I can start up. You have to see what doesn't work. And rather than complain about it, you say, this doesn't work, and I can make it better. But you can't do it on your own. You also have to be able to inspire other people. So entrepreneurship's about a lot of different things. Does that cover most of what you've heard about entrepreneurship? Is that why you're here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're nodding your head. She's sitting there going, I don't know why I'm here. Is the English okay? Yeah? Am I not funny enough? You see, this is good. This is good. This is one thing I teach my students. This is a business communication skill. When I tell a bad joke, you have to laugh. You see? You'll all do well in business. Even if you're asleep, sleep with your eyes open, right? This is a good business communication skill. Okay, I'm moving on. So what I think entrepreneurship is first of all, it's looking at what is and seeing what ought to be or what can be. It's about having a different relationship with reality. Rather than walking through the world and just kind of like, hoping life will somehow be better, is you look at the world and say, that can be better. That is a possibility. There's a woman I can date. I know I pointed at you, but I'm saying okay, there's a guy that he can date. I don't know. But it's about seeing what is and thinking what can be or what ought to be. But it's also more important than that. It's knowing that I can make it happen. I don't have to wait for the government or mommy and daddy or a professor or my friends to make my life better. I can do it. I've got my hand on the steering wheel of my life, and I'm driving down the road. I'm in charge. And if I see a change, I can make the change. And it's the most empowering force in the world. It says that if you see an injustice, you can fix it. If you see a new opportunity, you can start up that opportunity, and you can make it happen. And you can make it happen at any age. And in fact, some of the best entrepreneurs are young because you don't know any better. You've got nothing to lose, right? It's like, you're living in a home with mom and dad, you lose some money, whatever. It doesn't matter when you're young. When you're older and you got 3 kids and a house and a car, it's a little more risky to be an entrepreneur. So it's knowing that you can make it happen, and then it's taking that action. So who was it? Somebody asked me, what's the hardest part of starting a new business? It wasn't you. Where is she at? There you are. Yeah, part of it is just saying, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to act like I'm going to do it. I'm not going to write plans. I'm not going to send emails. I'm not going to sit behind a computer and see what my friend Google thinks I should do. Like, you get out in the world and you do stuff and you talk to people and you make things happen. And that's why entrepreneurship is really, it's really something fundamental about the human spirit. It's that spark that allowed human beings to get out of the caves. It's that spark that allowed human beings to irrigate water and grow crops and to save seeds for future years and to build a bigger building and to invent science and technology and new products and services. All that stuff, all the great things you see around you is because somebody saw something with their eyes and thought something in their mind and said, I'm going to make something happen. And they didn't wait for other people to tell them what to do. And so really, it's the most freedom-loving, creative force in the world. And it's really that something that kind of allows us to create the world that we want to live in. Isn't that a cool thing? Yeah, you're thinking, yeah, it sounds kind of cool. Yeah, I want to do that. But it's about starting. But the problem is, before you can change the world, you have to be able to change yourself. And so the other thing about entrepreneurship that really excites me is the interaction between you as a human being and the business. That you are the business. And you have to have personal success to be able to have business success. So I asked how many people were engineers. How many people are studying, what's it called, management science or management engineering? How many people are in management? Management engineering? Okay, so that's the other half of you. So you're learning about how to write business plans. You're learning about how to do a market analysis. You're learning about strategy, right? You all know about that kind of stuff. You want to come in? Come on in. There's like the booth there. So you've learned all of these tools. You've learned all these tools in management class or in business class. And there's this pyramid of success, I call it. So you learn how to do a company analysis, you learn how to do a market analysis, you learn how to do a competitor analysis and a customer analysis and segmentation. And you all know what a SWOT analysis is, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threat. So you do all this stuff, right? You don't know what any of this stuff is? Hey. Speaker's over here. Quit picking on the audience. Actually, pick on the guys back there. So we learn all these tools. So what we're doing, what we're teaching you in management class, or what you should learn in management class, is to look at the world around you and to analyze the company's strengths, the company's weaknesses, what the competitors look like. But then you also have to have some kind of a guide for what the company is going to do. You have to have a mission or a vision. And you have to share this vision with other people. Like, you can't have a mission and say, what's our company mission? Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody what our mission is. It's a secret. Well, don't you think our customers would like to know? Shh, no, don't tell the customer. We're trying to make the world a better place. Don't tell anybody. You got to tell it. You got to scream it. And when you scream it, nobody pays attention anyway. So you have to scream louder, and you got to put it in all your things. And of course, as a company, you have to have business plans, right? I mean, who wants to work at a company where you say, what's going to happen next year? I don't know. Are we going to grow? Que sera, sera. What's our product going to look like next year? Don't know, right? Like, obviously, in the business world, you got to do all this stuff, or otherwise, you're a lousy business person. You're probably going to fail. And of course, your actions have to be in harmony with all this stuff. So when all this stuff is all in harmony, what's the payoff in a business? What do you get when you get all this stuff all in line? Yeah, what are the good results? What? Money! Very good. She guys have taught her well. Triple bottom line, right? People, profit, planet. It's about achieving your goals, right? Making money, doing good in the world, stuff like that. When all these things are aligned, and you can track it, right? You can measure. Come on in, Yeniqua. We have a seat right there for you. Like a maitre d'. He wants to go hide in the back. There's no escaping from me. I can see you even in the back. And we can track all this stuff. And that's what we do as a business, is we measure this stuff. We project into the future. We say, how much money are we going to make next year? Do we make it? How are we doing? How are we going to split it up? So we do all this in the business side. But the thing for entrepreneurship is you have to have success as a human being to have success in business. And for everything that you do as a business, you also do for yourself in your own personal life. So here's the exact same slide for you as a human being. So it changed from green to blue. But aside from that, on the business side, you look at and you do a company analysis and stuff. But for you as a human being, you still have to look at the reality around you. On the business side, we've got all these tools that we learn about in class: customer analysis, segmentation, SWOT analysis, the space matrix, BCG, all that kind of cool stuff. But for you as a human being, you still have to look at the world around you and say, what am I good at? What do I know how to do? What are my interests? What are my aptitudes? Why would anybody want to work for me? Why would anybody want to work with me? Why would anybody want to buy me from me? But how many people actually use any of these tools? Uh-oh. Now suddenly your eyes are wide. Oh, my God, tools? I just started my business, and I didn't even ask who the customer was. Now, as a human being, I got to find out, like, what do I want to, like, what am I good at? And you should know what you're good at. Of course you should know what you're good at. If you come to me for a job and I say, why should I hire you? Well, I went to school. My mom and dad like me. Like, you got to answer the question. Why you? What are you good at?
We have too little experience to know what we are good in.
So you make it up. You say, I want to be good at this. And then of course it's not easy. If it was easy, anybody could do it.
It's university sport in Italy because we are always studying on the books, and never practicing at all, never doing experience.
Volunteer, darling.
Yeah.
Ah.
Study and then
Yeah.
You can do it. I graduated with top scores and I did volunteer for 10 years. Volunteer? Yes. Take your own.
So it's okay. Don't feel bad. Don't cry. I'll make you cry. It's not her job. Not yet. Yeah. Is she going to be one of yours eventually? If every company has to figure out what the company is good at, you have to also figure out what you're good at, and you have to figure out what your interests are. And it's hard, But there are tools. You can take tests. You can go online. You can go to Google and type in, how to get to know myself better. And you'll get a free test, right? There'll be the Myers-Briggs test. There'll be the Kolb test. There'll be the aptitude test. There'll be the strengths and weaknesses. There's all kinds of them. And you can take these tests, and you can learn a little bit about yourself. And so, has anybody heard of the Myers-Briggs test? So the professors are all nodding their heads. You should give a link to the Myers-Briggs test to people. Because I did this Myers-Briggs test thing. I thought, oh my God, you have peered into my soul, and you know who I am better than I do. I had no idea. I'm like, am I really like that? Of course, I asked my wife. She's like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. You didn't know? I'm like, I didn't know. She's like, I've only told you 20 times. Well, of course I didn't listen. It says right here I don't listen. I didn't know I didn't listen. Nobody told me. It's like, yes, they did tell you, but you didn't listen. But you take these tests and you get to learn more about yourself. So the same thing that a company can look at the reality around them, you can look at the world around you to learn what you're good and bad at. In the same way that a company has a vision and mission, human beings have a vision and mission. We usually call these things values and beliefs, stuff we care about. And very often we have stuff that we say we care about, but we don't really care about it. We just say that we care about it. I want to solve world hunger. No, I'm not doing anything about world hunger. I just say I want to solve world hunger. What I really want to do is make money or something. But we have things that we care about. But you should know, what are the things that I really care about? What are the things that I'm really passionate about? Because you should do stuff that you care about. Because if you're doing something you don't care about, you're not going to be happy. In the business side of things, everybody's got to have a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, you're going to fail, right? Oh my God. Well, how many people set goals? Do you set goals? Ah, good for you. No, it's important to set goals. I'm going to talk a lot about goal setting because goals are well known as the primary driver of performance. The higher the goal, the higher the performance. I know it sounds really stupid and obvious. That's why you need academics to do this stuff, right? We study this stuff. Wow, higher goals, higher performance. So set goals. If you don't set goals, you get almost no performance. You know, suddenly you wake up one day and you're in your mid-40s. You're like, wow, how did I get here? I have no idea how I got here. Well, it's because you got where you intended to go. You didn't have any goals, and you just kind of wound up taking whatever job, marrying whatever person asked you to, you know, kind of sort of doing this through life, and then suddenly you're 40 and you wonder, wow, I never solved world hunger. I didn't do all the wonderful things that I said were important to me when I was 20. When I was 20, I said these things were important, but when I was 40, suddenly, and then people feel badly about things. And they're like, oh man, I threw 20 years away. So it's important that in the same way we teach you in university how to have business success, it's also important to have personal success. Because if you don't have personal success, you can't have business success. I mean, if you can't show up on time for class, your company's not going to deliver on good performance. If you lie and cheat about stuff, your company's not going to be good to its customers. If you can't show up on time, your employees aren't going to show up on time. If you don't know what you're good at, your company doesn't know what it's good at. So it's important. So at my entrepreneurship classes, I teach personal success first and business success second. Because like all of my students are going to grow up one day and become people. You're supposed to laugh. You're supposed to laugh. Come on. Man. Okay, maybe I'll work on my jokes. I fully expect all my students will grow up one day and become people. Whether they start up a business or not, I don't actually care. I want them to be happy, successful, productive human beings. And then if they do choose to start up a business, that's cool too. But even if they don't go and start up a business, they're all going to become employees and work at places, and they'll be entrepreneurs within the companies. They'll go and work in a company and they'll do entrepreneurial things. They'll be aware of the world around them. They'll be aware of what needs to be changed within a company and say, hey, we can fix this, we can fix that. Or even better, that can be fixed and I'm the guy for the job. Pick me. I want to be that person. Do you ever, you read the paper and you see about these 30-year-olds that are presidents of companies? Do you ever wonder, like, why that person? Like there's a lot of other people in these banks. Like, you know, how did the 50-year-old become CEO of Deutsche Bank? Like there's all kinds of 60-year-olds that never became VP. Like why is it? You ever wondered about that? No? It bugs me all the time when I see somebody who's more successful than me. Like, how come they're more successful than me? And you wonder, like, were they just lucky? Were they in the right place at the right time? And I've asked a lot of people, see, you're smiling, like, yeah, they were just lucky. But I've asked a lot of people about this. And they've said, you know what? You walk into a room of people and you can tell who the winners are going to be. You walk into a room of people, give me 20 minutes, and just look at the eyes. And they can say, I can guess the more successful people from the less successful by the way they stand, whether they make eye contact, whether when something needs to be done in the company, they're like, I'll do it. Oh, yeah, I'll do that. I got an idea, and I'll do it. As opposed to, what's wrong with this company? I'm unhappy about this. I'm unhappy. Sorry, you're not part of the management team. We want, what they say is we want entrepreneurs. We want people who see opportunities and take advantage of it. We want people where the spark is on. That spark I talked about, that spark of humanity that separates us from the animals. They want to, they meet people and are like, wow, she's got a certain spark. Did you meet her? I want to hire this woman. I don't care. I'm going to hire her to do something. I don't care what. And I know people like this. Have you met people like this? I run an angel network. Does anybody know what angel capital is? These are high net worth individuals that invest in early stage companies, the rich people, right? And they've made these crazy investments. These one guys, they've invested in some woman's company. And they're like, I said, this company is going down the toilet. I said, this is a bad investment, guys. They said, we don't care. We love her. I want to adopt her. I want her to marry my son. I'm like, is your son even her age? I don't care. I'm like, you don't know anything about the business. It was like women's clothing or something like that. These three guys didn't know anything about women's clothing. They're like, we don't care. We love her. She's got that spark. And they said, if her company fails, we all want to hire her because she's got that spark. And so, again, think personal success before you think business success. And whenever your business professors teach you something about business, think about, how can I make that part of my life? Any questions about any of this? This is supposed to be a conversation. Yeah? So I'm just going to grab here's my water.
So like you spoke a lot about like personal, let's say success and about like inner drivers, but like maybe you are coming, but like what about the collaboration, like and the group success basically, like what like other people makes for your success?
I'm definitely going to cover that.
All right.
It's important because one thing we've discovered about entrepreneurship is there's very, very, very few individuals that they start teams of people and they inspire and motivate other people. And so even if it's Steve Jobs, who was kind of well known as being a bit of an asshole, right? He still managed to motivate and inspire people around him. And so it is important to be able to, I'm going to get to that. So anything else at this point?
I have one.
Okay.
And it's about the spark. And do you think the society as a role, like enlightening this spark, or it's something that is shared like across culture, and it's like an average of the population, that someone has the spark and some other no?
Well, that's an interesting question. I would say my number one job is to ignite the spark in other people. And one thing I have discovered is I can't actually do that. It's my number one job and I actually can't do it. But what I discovered is that sometimes by repetition, sometimes by giving people the opportunity over and over again, and sometimes finding the right time in their life when they're ready to get the spark. That, like, I'll say the same thing 20 times. And suddenly the 20th time somebody will say, oh, Professor Gedeon, you changed my life. It was wonderful. When you said this thing, I finally clicked and did it. And I'm thinking, well, great, I won. Like I got one student out of 50. But then I think, where the hell were you the other 19 times? And the answer is, I can't give you a spark. You have to find the spark. All I can try to do is kind of put all the pieces together to create an environment in which you can figure out to get that spark on your own. but each individual has to turn that switch on or off. That at a certain point in time, you have to turn that switch on to say, I'm in charge of my life. I've got my hands on the wheel. I'm in charge. I don't believe in fate and destiny and mommy and daddy telling me what to do. I'm in charge. If I want to make something happen, I can do it. And people talk about it, you know, and they'll say, yeah, I'm in charge. And then you kind of look at me like, you're not in charge. You're floating through life. You show up on class when they tell you to show up in class. You barely do the assignments when you have to, you know, and then you complain about things. You say you're in charge, but you're not in charge. And really feeling that spark. And that's something that each person happens inside your own head. And as much as I try to do that for my students, I can't do it. And it's really hard because sometimes what people need is a good swift kick in the ass, right? Like sometimes what I need to do is like somebody's up there giving a presentation and I've got to say something like, wow, that was crap. Just sit down. That was embarrassing. It's a horrible thing to say to a student, but sometimes that's what they needed. And then they're like 20 years later, they're like, oh, Professor Gedeon. Maybe not, I'm not old enough. 5 years later, 5 years later, like, that was what I needed. When you said that to me, that was the thing that woke me up. And other people are just like, well, he's a horrible human being. I'm never going to talk to him again. And so, like, it's hard to know what somebody needs for that spark. Sometimes they need love and encouragement and support and nurturing and respect and all that good stuff that we like to talk about. And sometimes what they need is like, dude, hello, come on, you screwed up, you know you screwed up, grow up and get over it. Oh, yeah, you're right. You like the way I picked on you? And it's hard trying to figure out what people need from you to help get that spark going. And it's different for each person. So what can society do? I don't know. I think it's kind of an individual thing. I don't think it's really something society can do. I think societies can kill the spark. I mean, we know of some really brutal societies that crush the human spirit and are particularly mean towards women and gays and people that are a little different and different religions. Like, there's a lot of societies that are just horrible towards destroying the spark. But outside of just having freedom, Italy's a pretty good place. I think Italy's probably as good of a culture or a society as you can get for saying, if you're unhappy with your life, you can fix it. It's a free world. Like, if you can't be happy here in Italy, good luck. Move to Saudi Arabia. Maybe you'll be happier in Saudi Arabia if you don't like it here in Italy. Does that answer your question? Okay. You're going to tell me when to shut up and stop talking. I got lots of, I'm used to speaking in 3-hour sound bites, right? So I can talk all night. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through this and just give you a couple of things on each thing. So this little pyramid here might be a little abstract. I'm going to kind of go through and just give you some more thoughts, kind of chew this over a little bit. So on the reality side of things, what this means is, you got to be good at something. If you're a company starting up, you got to figure out what your company is good at. So here's a business plan I hear all the time. Professor Gedeon, what do you think about my new business? I'm going to start up this new app, and it's going to do this really cool thing. What do you think? And I say, do you know how to program apps? No. And I say, then I don't like it. But let me tell you about my app. But you don't know how to make an app. So I don't like the idea, because you can't do it. If you have a team with somebody who does know how to make an app, then I'm happy to have a conversation. But until then, I got this great idea. All I need is $1 million, and then I'll da-da-da-da-da-da. I go, do you have $1 million? No. Then it's a lousy idea. Find a new idea. Like, if you got $1 million, it might be a great idea for somebody else, but not for you. So find an idea that's good for you. And so, Professor Gedeon, what should I do when what kind of a job should I get? Well, I don't know. I like being a professor, but I don't know what you like. It's got to be something you're good at. Well, what are you good at? Well, I don't know what I'm good at. Well, figure it out. I can't tell you what you're good at. Your friends might know you enough. Maybe your friends can help. Maybe your parents can help. Maybe your professors who know you better can help. Or, I don't know. Maybe if you were my student, I could tell you what you were good at. Maybe not. But you got to figure out what you're good at. And you got to be able to know your stuff. So one of the problems with universities is we like to give people a general education. But the trouble is, if you're a general education, you're not really good at any one thing. You might know a lot of little things, but you're not good at any one thing. So think of like a computer programmer. You want to hire a computer programmer. And your computer programmer has to be good at, let's say, C++. This gentleman over here, he knows a little bit about everything. He knows Java and COBOL and Fortran and Lingo, and he knows a little bit of C++ as well. Do you want to hire him? No. I want to hire a C++ guy. I don't want to hire him. He's a generalist, which means he's not really good at anything. And this is kind of a problem with university educations, is we teach you a little bit about a lot of things, and then you go out in the real world and they say, what are you good at? I'm not really good at anything. I got an A in this class, but I only had one of them. And so you need to find something that you're interested in and volunteer for something. So one of the things that I do in my university is I started up an institute, and we've got 150 volunteers in this institute. And they run the show. And we've got a 25-person marketing team, and we've got a 10-person videography team, and we've got a 8-person web development team, and they're all students, right? And the one thing, they drive me crazy, because every year they want to change the brand. I'm like, what was wrong with last year's brand? Well, I'm in charge now, and it's going to be different. Fine, whatever, But when they graduate, they're able to say, and I did something. I didn't just graduate and say that I took 3 marketing classes, but I said that I took 3 marketing classes and I created 5 marketing campaigns and 2 brands and 2 websites, and I'm not going to pay them, right? I actually usually try to see if they'll pay me to help educate them, but that doesn't work either. So we settle on volunteerism. So you got to know your stuff. So if you're starting up a business, you have to know your customers, and you can't expect your professors to know your customers. You have to know your customers. You've got to be an expert at that. And if you're going to start up a business, you have to be the one who deserves to lead. Again, you got to be good. You got to show up on time. This always drove me crazy. So whenever I've been the CEO of, I don't know, let's say a dozen different companies, guess what time people showed up for work at my companies? Think about this for a second. And I'm not asking for a specific time. But what time do you think everybody showed up for work? And what time do you think everybody left? Probably. So here's the answer. They showed up about 5 minutes before me, right? Or maybe 5 minutes after me. But if I started showing up at 12 o'clock, guess what time they're going to all show up? 12 o'clock. If I'm there at 9 o'clock, they all show up around 9 o'clock, right? If I'm there till 4 and then I leave, boss is gone, people slip out the door. But if I'm there at 9 o'clock and I stay till 9 o'clock, people hang around, right? You have to lead by example, right? You can't expect everybody else to do your work for you. So in the same way, whether you're studying a class, right? You can't expect somebody else to be a student for you. You can't expect somebody else to do your learning for you. You can't expect your professor to tell you what to think and how to learn, right? The professor can help. Professor can point at a book and stand up in class and say a bunch of stuff, but you've got to do the learning. The professor can't learn for you. The learning has to happen in your own head. I didn't see a lot of nods there. They're going, what? Not here in Italy. Oh, no. If I flunk, it's because Matteo is a horrible professor. See, I used to think your failure as a student is my failure as a professor. And then I learned, no. If you fail as a student, you suck. It's your own fault. I'm a great professor. Whether you learned anything or not is not my problem. It's your job to learn. You like that? It's changed my life. It's made me so much happier. It's changed my life. I'm like, I will do everything I can in my power to help you learn. But if you learn or not is your problem, not my problem. I'll help you, but anyway. So, let's move on. So values and connections. We're moving up now. Do something that's important. What's important? I don't know. What's important to you? You have to figure out what's important to you. And you got to do what you believe in. And you got to be important to yourself, to your customers, to your employees, to your investors, to your stakeholders. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but if you're going to start up a new business, you're probably going to fail. You've heard this. But why do we do it? Why do we start up a company knowing that we're probably going to fail? No answers? Because you want to do it. It's the joy is in the doing. It's like I had some great failed companies. We had so much fun. The stuff we did was so freaking cool. People were paying us to work with us. People would like knock on the door. Can we come work for your company? I'm like, I don't know if you're good enough. You know, I mean, I'm not even going to pay you. And people were like begging, can I come and hang around with you guys because this is such a cool company? I'm like, well, I'll let you hang around for a couple of weeks. But if you don't make the grade, we don't want you hanging around with us. It's true. Like people, they come and they program for a month or so, and then I'm like, okay, you're so amazing and cool, I'm going to start paying you. But until then, I'm like, look, you're not amazing and cool enough. Get the hell out and quit hanging around with us. And I don't want to see you on Friday nights drinking with my boys here. like you're not part of the team. Go away. We only have 4 extra computers. I got some other free people that are going to use up those 4 computers. Quit hanging around. Well, maybe if you do something cool on the side. But if you've got that kind of an idea that's cool enough, you can do that. And even if you fail, you're like, hey, we kind of changed the world. Even in our failure, we kind of changed the world in a way. And everybody that was in the company learned some really cool skills and went on to become successful and do some cool stuff. So you got to do something that's important. You might fail. I don't know, but at least you're living your life to the maximum. You're doing something that you believe in. And people love giving money to people that are passionate. Whether it's a customer or an investor, like they want to know that what they're doing is making a difference. Less and less, I think, people just want an economic transaction with people. They want more from life than, yeah, I'll come sit here from 9 to 5 and I'm looking forward to the weekend and looking forward to retiring. But, I'll come work for your bank, right? Nobody wants to do that, right? I don't know. Does anybody want to do that? Matteo's looking around. Who wants to do that? You want to do something cool, right? We all want to do something cool. No?
I was thinking about the other part, working 9 to 5.
You just want to work 9 to 5? Don't come work for my company. I'd drum you out so fast. And quit annoying everybody else, leaving at 5 o'clock. You have to be able to connect at a deeper level than just money. And if you want to live a life of excitement and passion, this should be true of the jobs that you take. Now, maybe when you're 24 and you just need to get a car and you want to get out from home, you might have to be stuck taking whatever job you can get. But when you get that job, squeeze as much out of that job as you can, learn as much as you can, then get the hell rid of it and move on to a better job. So if they're just going to use you for your time, then you can use them for the knowledge that they're going to give you and the cool thing to put on your resume. And what I'll often do is I'll think through, at a job, I'll think, how long do I need to stay at this job to put whatever I can accomplish on my resume? Because in the end, that's all you are, is just kind of a list of your accomplishments. And working 10 years versus 2 years, and all you're going to do is put the same thing on your resume, like it's time to move on. Unless you're connecting at a deeper level and you're doing something that you're passionate about. If you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter. Like I'll clean toilets if I'm passionate about it. I don't care. And I've cleaned all the toilets in my companies. I'm sorry. It's the way it is. Anyway, connect at a deeper level and try to inspire. I'm going to move on. Questions about any of that? People. Teams of people. You asked me about teams of people. This is where it happens. Like just because you've got some crazy idea doesn't mean that anybody else cares about your crazy idea. But if you want me to spend time with you, if you want me to come and work for free, or to work because you're probably not going to pay very well because you're a poor entrepreneur, it's about connecting at that deeper level. It's about inspiring people. It's about giving people a sense of the future, that the future is going to be better. Does that kind of answer your question? Kind of. That's all I got.
No, because like anyway, it's something you do. It's like your personal view, and you try to be a leader for other people in order maybe to share some ideas. But what about people connections and people collaborations? People collaboration in having an idea and also starting up a company or starting together with an idea. Or it's always from one.
Okay. So one thing we've discovered is that groups almost always come up with better outcomes than individuals. And you can do a lot of studies on this, where you give like 5 different individuals an assignment of some sort, and they do the best that they can. But then you put the 5 people together, and what the 5 people come up with is almost always better than what one person comes up with. I mean, yeah, I know we love Steve Jobs, right? But he's Steve Jobs, or he was. And he's only one person. And they fired him once, right? And he started up a new company. Does anybody even remember what his new company was? Nah, you actually bought that from, everybody says that. No, it was called Next. Yeah, but like, what happened to Next? They didn't change the world, right? So, and that was Steve Jobs, and he's like amazing when it comes to like design, visionary thinking and stuff like that. And, you know, I mean, do you remember when basically the US government pointed a gun at Microsoft and said, if you don't give Apple $200 million to keep them alive, we're going to bring the full weight of the antitrust legislation on you, and we're going to break your company up and stomp on it. And Microsoft said, ah! and threw money at Apple to keep them alive. And then suddenly now Apple's back, and now Apple's as evil as Microsoft ever was, but that's a different story. So yeah, collaboration among teams is hugely important. I know, you know, in entrepreneurship we often talk about the individual and that, but usually it's a team of individuals, each with their own unique strengths and experiences that they bring together as a team. Is that?
Yeah, no,
okay.
Now it sounds good because somehow like I got some also like I felt like you were speaking also about competitiveness, like among people, like to look at something that is more successful than you, for example, and so I mean this kind of stuff that were like that I was wondering, it is better like to see at other people like some. Like it is better to see at other people like someone that are maybe more successful than you, and so that you wanna maybe be more successful than them, or maybe like to see at other people like I wanna have success with them, or they are the best mate, like to have success together. Is this kind of?
Well, I think what you're touching on is. Something that's very important that's happening in the high-tech space right now, and so I'm not sure if you've all heard about this before, but and a lot of countries complain about this. They complain that most companies start up, they stay relatively small, they rarely grow beyond 10 people, and then they get acquired by a foreign company. And the Germans hate this, right? You know, the Canadians hate this. Like, oh, the ugly Americans are stealing all of our best Canadian companies. But that's a big mistake, because to be successful on a global scale, you got to be big. I'm sorry. Like, a little 10-person company can't be important on the global stage. It'll just never be big enough. And what happens is a little 10-person company eventually gets surpassed by somebody else, in which case, you had a great little 10-person company. You could have been important, but because you wanted to do it all on your own, the world passed you by. And so what we see is happening increasingly is companies like Google and Microsoft and Apple and Research in Motion and Samsung and Toshiba and Fujitsu, they've got tons of cash. They're sitting on cash. You know, national governments are spending money like drunken sailors and ringing up debts and stuff like that, but companies are sitting on cash, and shareholders are screaming, spend the cash or give it back to us. And what they're doing is a company like Google, guess how many companies Google buys a year? There we go, that's a good question. How many companies a year do you think Google buys?
50.
They'll do 50 publicly reported in excess of 66 million a year. Like, they'll publicly report 50 a year because they have to. If you buy somebody at over 66 million, you have to publicly report that if you're a public company. But let's talk about the little 10-person teams. How many little 10-person teams a year do you think Google buys?
1 of 8.
More than that. Like, they're buying like 200-300 a year. And the price point, the magic price point, is 5 to 20 million. So what a lot of people are doing is they start up a team, and they don't want to get any investor money, right? Maybe a couple $100K, but not too much. You keep it small. with really good, high-quality people. And you get just far enough that you become important to Google. And you become a piece in the big machine. And then, whoop, they just gobble you up. And they're doing like 5, 6 of these a week, right? So like all you gotta do is be big enough to go, hey, look at me, I'm sexy. Hey, 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 sexy over here. Google, if you don't want us, I'm going to Microsoft. And then it's like, oh, and then they gobble them up. And really, part of it's a talent hunt. They're just trying to find good people. But they realize that it's easier to just gobble up these little teams because what they built fits into their overall things. And so to answer your question, you got to figure out where you fit in the piece of things. Like if you say, I'm going to change the world on my own, my little 10-person team is going to change the world. No, I'm sorry. The world is just too big. And by the time Google figures out who you are, they'll put 100 people on it and squish you like a bug, right? So you're far better off, move to Silicon Valley, right? And you know, the Canadians whine about this all the time because all their companies are getting bought up by the ugly Americans, and the Germans complain about it. But the thing is, like, they all come back, right? Go to Silicon Valley, earn a lot of money, make some great connections, learn how to be amazing, and then they all move back to Toronto. They all move back to Vancouver because it's a nice part of the world to live in. And so then they come back, and now they've got cash, they got money, they got connections. Then they start up a second company and then a third company. And so it's actually really good for the national economy for people to become part of that larger collaboration. So it's important to collaborate not just with other individuals within your company, but you as a company will probably never amount to much of anything if you're not also collaborating with other bigger companies. Whether you get acquired or not isn't that important. But you know, often what happens with these companies, and we see them now, like these second and third generation entrepreneurs, we see them, they'll start up a company and they'll say, if I don't get acquired within 2 years, I'm killing this company and moving on to another one. It's okay. Hey, I'm 30 years old. I'll start up a company, run it for 2 years. If it's not successful, I'll move on. I'll start up another one, and then a third one, and a fourth one. I mean, I've been in 12 companies, right? Look how young I am. So, anyway, is that, okay. Any other questions on that point? Nobody does an IPO nowadays. An initial public offering, nobody does that. I mean, Facebook does that, but Facebook is weird. So, but most companies, it's like 100 times more likely that you'll get acquired than that you'll do an IPO. And IPOs are ugly anyway. They're horrible, demeaning, nasty things. Okay, I want to talk about goal setting. And I don't have a clock or any clock. What time am I supposed to be done at? Totally lost track of time.
7.
And I'm supposed to be done at around 7:15?
Oh, 10:30, 10:45.
Okay, I'll cover goal setting because I think this is really important. So one thing we know about in management, and I'm sure you've had this in every management class, you gotta measure stuff. The big thing that differentiates, like anybody can start a business, right? I mean, just walk down the street of Bologna and look at all the stores, right? Like there's lots of people who can start, like anybody can start up a store. It's not really hard to start up a store. What's hard is to start up a successful store. What's hard is to start up a successful company. And the thing that differentiates the average manager from a good manager or the average entrepreneur from a professional entrepreneur is a professional entrepreneur knows their numbers and they're measuring things. Because when you measure something, it gets done. When you can track your goal against something, it happens. And this is why the balance sheet is so important and the financial statements are so important because you're measuring things. You can say, like, how are we doing? So you gotta measure things. And what we know is the higher the goal, the higher the performance. So, you know, good goals, good performance. Mediocre goals, mediocre performance. No goals, good luck. Good luck. So how to do goals? Not just goals on a business level, but goals on a personal level. So in your classes, I mean, if you have a strategy class, I'm sure you're learning how to set financial and non-financial objectives. So what I want to cover is how to do goal setting. Now, how many people had a goal setting class before? Come on. Poor Matteo. 2 people. You guys you've never had a goal setting thing? Nobody taught you how to set goals? I'm looking at you right now. I see the guys. No? You think I'm just going to leave you alone if you don't answer me? You've never had okay. See, I'm glad I asked. Come si chiama goals? Obiettiva. Have you ever had a class on how to set goals, like personal goals?
We'll be talking about KPI.
Well, KPIs are what business people call them, KPI. Yeah, personal goals.
Personal goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be funny, clever.
Yeah? Good, good. So you haven't, So Canadians have all had goal-setting classes, and they all learned absolutely nothing in their classes. So you're all new. You haven't learned. I don't have to correct any of the mistakes in that case of previous professors. See, in Canada, everybody's had a goal-setting class. They all think, goal-setting doesn't work. But so for a company, setting goals is relatively straightforward, right? I mean, there's people, profit, planet. There's the triple bottom line, and there's classes and books you can read and things like that. But for a human being, what makes you happy is complicated. Like, it's really hard to be happy. It's surprisingly hard to be happy. And it seems like the happier we are, the harder it is to get happy, right? Like, you know, if you compare our lives to the lives, let's say, 500 years ago, like, I mean, if you looked at anybody's life first of all, you women, maybe 2 of you would still be alive. The rest of you would have died in childbirth. I'm serious. 500 years ago, I'd say there might be 2 women out of 20 that would survive into their 30s. And the guys, how many teeth do you have? Right? Most of you would be missing half of your teeth. Right? And yet, you know, it seems like the more prosperity we have in the world, the harder it is to get happy. Partially it's because we have so many choices. And so in the course of your life, like, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be in balance in order to be happy. Now, when you're young, social life is easy, right? You kind of hang out, people come in, like, hey, let's go party. Like, social life is really easy when you're 20. But when you're 50, you know, guess what I do on a Friday night if I don't have a plan? I don't do anything. Like, I sit at home. Like, nothing happens on a Friday night. And if I want to go out on a Friday night, okay, but guess how many people I have to ask to find somebody who's free on a Friday night? Like, my friends are all busy on a Friday night. They're like, don't call me on a Friday night, I'm busy. Like, if I want to have a date, you know, with somebody, like, it's 3 months in advance. Like, I'm already preparing with some people. What's that?
I'm offended by it.
Don't listen to that woman in the corner. I don't know her. I love spending Friday nights at home alone with my wife, by the way, for the record. But a social life doesn't happen on its own when you're 50. You have to make plans. You have to have an arrangement. And your friends have children, and they got to get a babysitter, and, you know, like, your plan, like, to go out with anybody, it takes 2 months to get a plan to go out with anybody. And if you don't have a plan, nothing happens, which is okay, because I love it when nothing happens with just me and my wife cuddling on the couch together. It's a wonderful, fabulous life. In addition to that, so my family life is wonderful. It used to be wonderful. We'll find out. Social life. And so my point is, though, at different times in your life, you might focus on different things. So when you're in your 20s, maybe you devote all of your time and attention to your educational things. But very often when you're in your 50s, you don't do anything educational, and you're only doing other things. Maybe you're only caring about financial things. And so this might change from time to time over the course of your life. But you do need goals, because otherwise, suddenly time goes by and you realize, oh my God, I missed something. You know, I'm 50 and I haven't actually read a book in 5 years. I've done nothing educational in 5 years. Or maybe when you're in your 20s, you say, oh my God, I just lost 5 years. I haven't actually stayed in touch with my friends from high school. Or, you know, I actually haven't, you know, spent any time with my little brother who I, was kind of mean to the last time I talked to 5 years ago. And so you need to set goals in all these different areas of your life. And the way to set these goals is you start with something that kind of looks like a value. I'll give you an example, health. So I want to be healthy. Right? Sounds like a good goal. But it's not. It's not a goal at all. It's kind of a value. I want to be healthy. I don't know what to do. I need to somehow drive that. Remember that pyramid, right? I want to somehow drive my goal into an action. And so somehow I have to, here, I'll show you here. So here's my goal. So you might have a goal, but you have to translate your goals into the action that happens on top of it. And so a way to do that is you start by maybe saying some kind of a global thing. I want to have a great, loving relationship with my wife. But you have to turn that into something that's going to happen today. And so has anybody seen SMART goals before? See, wow, this is great. See, again, all my Canadian students have been totally ruined by they've been all taught the wrong thing. So you're being taught once right, at least. So what the SMART framework does is it lets you take any goal and say, okay, you want to be healthy. That's a good goal. There's nothing wrong with that goal, but it doesn't get you what you want. And so in addition to that goal, you need another goal. So maybe another goal might be, I want to lose 5 pounds. Well, okay. Then what you do is you say, that's a good goal. There's nothing wrong with it. I now have 2 goals. But again, I want to lose 5 pounds. Well, it's kind of specific. Kind of 5 pounds. It's measurable. Ooh, it's not action-oriented. I don't know what I'm going to do to lose those 5 pounds. Is it realistic? I don't know. And is it timely? Ooh, I don't know when it's going to happen by. Okay. So I've got 2 good goals, but I still need something to put on my to-do list. So I'm going to add another goal. I want to lose 5 pounds. Okay, 2 kilograms. There we go. I want to lose 2 kilograms by June the 1st by exercising on a treadmill 3 times a day. And then I'm going to maintain an average daily weight of 165 pounds by exercising 3 times a week. Ah, okay. This is starting to sound pretty good. It's specific. I'm gonna use a treadmill, right? One of those things that you walk on. It's measurable. I know how much weight I'm going to lose. I know when I'm going to. It's action oriented. I know when I'm going to do it. Realistic. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's realistic or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my goal down. Now I've been doing this for 25 years. I've now written about 28 journals, books that I've filled up. Actually, I bought a lot of my books from Venice. I bought like 20 books, and I filled them all up, and I just went back and bought another 6 books recently. And I keep track of my goals. And so that was one of my goals one year, was I'm going to lose 5 pounds by this date, and I'm going to do this. And so then I went a year, and I went back, and I thought, well, now, wait a minute. That actually wasn't realistic. I lost the 5 pounds, but then, you know, Christmas time, like, my wife is an amazing baker. I'm gaining weight. In the summertime, I'm not exercising on a treadmill. I hate being in a treadmill. It's hot, it's boring, and you're inside. I want to be outside. I want to play Frisbee in the summertime. I want to sail. I want to do something else. And so what I found over time was that particular goal didn't quite work for me. But I didn't know. And so here's a mistake that people make about goal setting, is they act like once you've made a goal, that's the goal, and you got to do that goal. And if you don't make that goal, you're a loser. You lied to yourself. That goal is there. You got to meet your goal. Oh, I don't want a goal. It's going to make me unhappy. Goals suck. Right? What you do, though, is you write it down, and you see like how you try it on. Like it's like a new suit. You know, I'm trying on this goal. You see how it's going to work. And you're like, okay, I lost the weights, but I didn't do the treadmill. I didn't do this. I gained a little bit of weight over Christmas time. And then the next year, you say, you know what? I'm feeling very comfortable with my weights. I think I'm not going to lose any more weight. I'm getting up there in age a little bit. I think looks just fine on me if I had my jacket on. And you change these things. And so the goals that I had 25 years ago are obviously different than the goals I have now. The goals I have for physical things are completely different. My financial goals are completely different. My family goals are different. My social goals are different. You know, when I was 30, one of my goals would have been, oh man, Friday night. I got to have something to do every Friday night. I'm 30 years old. I want to be out partying. I want to have something to do. Now, to be quite honest, Friday nights, my wife and I look at us like, we don't want to go out. We just want to stay home. We've been doing too much lately. Like, my goal is no more than 2 social events a month. Is that fair? Now you're no longer offended? Because I love my wife so much, I want to spend so much time. I don't want to waste my time with other people. I want to.
That's good.
Okay. Note to self, buy flowers. To-do list. Set goals in all areas of your life. Your goals can change from time to time. You start with a big goal, and you drive that down into something you can put on your to-do list today. So here's a goal for you. I want to find a business idea to start up a new company. Right? I think you guys both said that. You're looking for a business idea. Right? So that's okay. So, but the question, so that's the goal. I want a cool idea that I might want to start up a business around. But you got to find some piece of that to put on your to-do list today. Well, tomorrow. Tonight you can hang out. Tomorrow, though. And so come up with an idea. That's all too vague, right? But you can come up with something a bit more specific. So maybe it can be go to Google and try to find a trend that I care about. You know, maybe you can find a trend related to cars or mechanical engineering or mechatronics or whatever it is that you're into. Find a trend that you want to get onto. See, I'm not going to help you with your goal anymore if you're going to talk to her. I don't care about your goal anymore. I want to help you with your goal now. Anyway, so, but again, the idea is you want to take it from this goal, which is kind of down here on the pyramid, and move it up to an action. So, so when to do this? So I want to talk a little bit about time management. Because often what people do is they say, well, I set goals, but I never have time to achieve them. Right? I've got homework to do. I can't volunteer for something. I'm too busy. Because you're going to look back at, so here, remember this. You're going to remember one thing tonight. 10 years, you're going to look back at your life. I mean, how old are you now?
24.
24. When you're 34, you're going to look back and say, when I was 24, the world was wonderful. I had so much time. I had more time than I knew what to do with. Life at 24 was carefree. I had so much free time when I was 24. You don't? Anyway, because when you're 34, looking back at when you're 24, you're going to think, oh man, when I was 24, life was easy. And so, because you do have time. You have more time than you think. You have time to volunteer if you want. You have time to fulfill your goals. But here's how you have to make it happen. The first thing is you have to, I'm going to move on. So all of the things that you think are important, you can fit into 4 different categories. Right? There's stuff that's important, urgent, not urgent. And a lot of the things that you spend your time doing are not particularly important. But maybe you think they're urgent. A lot of people spend a lot of time doing things that aren't particularly important, that you're not even going to remember next week, much less next month, much less when you're 34. You're going to look back at 34 and you're going to say, man, I did a lot of stupid things that were really pretty useless, that really weren't particularly important. They seemed important at the time. You know, the phone rings. Oh, I got to answer the phone. It's ringing. Got to answer the phone. We don't even know who it is. It might not be important. Like you can let. You know, I have voicemail, right? You don't have to answer the phone. Or like somebody sends you an email. It's urgent. I got to answer my email right away. No, you don't. Your friends can live without you for 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours or something like that. A lot of the things that we think are urgent are not actually urgent. You can batch process them. You can answer all your emails first thing in the morning and maybe again at night. And after that, turn it off. Don't even look at it. Don't care. Turn your phone off. Don't answer it. Like you can answer your calls in the morning and in the evening, or your text messages, or all that kind of stuff. You could batch that stuff up, unless you're so important. Like, oh, but I'm so important. The world can't live without me for 2 hours. But the problem is that quadrant 2 is where all your goals are. Quadrant 2 are all the things that you know are going to make your life better. These are all the things like find a new business idea. These are all the things like, gee, I really should devote more time to my love relationship. These are things like I should spend some more time exercising. So when it comes to exercising, it's important. If you don't exercise, you're going to die. But it's not urgent. I don't have to exercise today. I can exercise tomorrow, or the next day, or the next week, or the next week. You can always put those things off. But if you do exercise, you do these things, it actually gives you more energy. Actually gives you more ability to be productive. So another example would be, you know, I know that if I study this certain chapter earlier, before I go in to have the lecture, like if I read the book before I go into the lecture rather than the night before the test, I know I'll do better. It's not urgent, right? You don't have to read the book before the lecture. You can just show up at the lecture, you know, hungover from the night before. The professor might cover the material, maybe he won't. But you know that if you read the book before the lecture, you'll get more out of the lecture. And then the night before the test, you don't have to study at all because you know it. My friends hated me because I never studied for a test. I never studied for a test because I knew it by then. I had all semester long to know the material. I never studied the night before. I went out and drank the night before because I paid attention in class. I read the book beforehand. I understood what was going on. I knew what the professor was saying. If I had any questions, I asked the questions. They answered the questions. Came time, took a test. Yeah, I know the answers. I mean, maybe you had to memorize some stuff. Like there might be some short-term memorization. There's always some formulas in engineering you got to kind of pump into your brain. But outside of that, like, you know, knowing the subject matter, you got all semester to know the subject matter. All these students would wait until the last minute and then study the night before a test. Oh, I got to learn this. You're learning the material the night before the test? Oh, you're screwed. Like, I'm glad there's people like you to get the C's. You know, thanks. Like, why did you waste a whole semester and not study or not know the material? Anyway, quadrant 2 is where all the important goals are. Quadrant 2 is where exercise is. Quadrant 2 is where developing a good relationship is. Quadrant 2 is all those productivity enhancing activities, like figuring out what your next company might be, like studying, like learning the material before you have to learn the material. It's, you know, buy your wife flowers, for example, right? It's important, but it's not urgent. I don't have to buy her flowers today. She'll still love me tomorrow. I can wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. But eventually, you got to buy flowers for your wife. Unless she hates flowers. My wife hates flowers. I never buy her flowers. That's what he tells himself. So when do you do your quadrant 2 activities? So first thing you need to do is find your peak productivity time of day. You have to know yourself well enough to know when are you best at doing things. So do you all know when you're best at doing things? Kinda? So I'll tell you what my life is like. First thing in the morning, I'm useless. Like, it's all I can do to crawl out of bed. I hate waking up in the morning. I drink a cup, like, before I have my first cup of coffee, don't even talk to me. I'm not sure if I like my wife coming to my talks or not. It's true. Second cup of coffee, I start to become mostly human, you know. Now is a good time to maybe check my emails, you know, walk around, talk to people. Like when I was working, you know, go talk to your colleagues and, you know, chat, how you doing, da-da-da. But by 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30, I'm wide awake. I've had my second cup of coffee. Now I've hit my peak productivity time of day. Email goes off, phone goes off. My goals come out, my to-do list comes out. What are the big things I need to do? What are the most important things I need to do for the day? And I'm really, really good and focused from about 10:30 till about 1:30. Like that's a good solid 3 hours. I can get a lot done in that 3 hour period of time. I never take a meeting during that time. Never, ever. I never answer my phone. I never check my emails. I never do anything like that. Somebody says, hey, Steve, I need to have a meeting. I go, oh, let me check my schedule. Oh, so I can meet early in the morning. Actually, no, I can never meet early in the morning. I can meet after 1:30 because I'm useless after 1:30, right? But between, you know, can we meet at 10 o'clock? Oh, no, sorry, I'm busy at 10 o'clock. No one has ever asked me, what are you doing at 10 o'clock that's more important to me? 25 years of doing this. Nobody has ever once said, no, I really want to meet at 10 o'clock. I want you to move your schedule around for me. They never do that. If I say I'm busy at 10 o'clock, I'm busy at 10 o'clock. They don't ask, you know, what are you doing at 10 o'clock? Well, I'm actually doing my quadrant 2 goals activity or something like that. Anyway, 1:30, now I'm tired, eat lunch, now I'm useless for a while, good time for a meeting, good time for a phone call, a good time to answer emails again for a while. By 4 o'clock, I'm awake again. I've had my third cup of coffee, now I have another cup of coffee in the afternoon. Now I'm really good from about 4 o'clock till about 8 o'clock. And then useless, dinner, a glass of wine. If it's at a time in my life when I'm busy, I get another wind about 10 o'clock. And then I can work from like 10 o'clock till whenever. That's not good for me. I don't sleep very well. I don't like to work late at night, but I had many years of my life where I worked 70 hours a week, and I just had to put in that extra time. So, but the point is, like, get the important things in during your peak productivity time of day. You know, if you think you've got like a bottle or a jar, and you put some rocks into this jar, is the jar full? No, you can put some stones around the rocks, fit some more in. Is the jar full? Now you can put some sand in around it. Is it full yet? No, you can put some wine over the top or some water or something, right? Like, it's amazing how much you can fit into your life, but you got to put the big rocks in first. Because if you put the sand in first and then the stones, there's no room for the rocks anymore. So if volunteering for something is important to you because you want to build some skills so you get the job you want, you get the life you want, you get the career you want, you have time. You can do it. It's a matter of fitting the rock in first. And what we find in the, because I run a volunteer organization, what we find is that the students that are working 30 hours a week in this volunteer organization, they are so good at their schoolwork, they laugh at schoolwork. They're like, schoolwork is so easy. Oh my God. You can, like, the things that other people spend 8 hours doing, they do in 2 hours. Because they don't, like, work fills to fit the available time. And like I've sat in on some student meetings. Like, they sit around, a couple people come late, they talk, They talk about this for a while, then they talk about this for a while, and they talk, like, my God, you call this work? Like, this is a social event. Like, you want to, like, you could have easily accomplished what most students do in 2 hours. You can accomplish in 15 minutes of dedicated, like, we got an agenda, this is what we're going to do. Did you do what you say you were going to do? You didn't? Well, why didn't you do it? I mean, like, this is the way the real world works. But because students seem to have a lot of time, they waste a lot of time. But if you get the big rocks in first, then you come into these meetings that some people might want to take 3 hours. You're like, okay, I don't have 3 hours. I got 15 minutes. It's amazing what you can do in 15 minutes of focused time. You all have more time in your lives than you think. You can fit these things in. Okay, I'm going to go on to my last one, I think. Okay. I'm going to move on. So the final thing I really want to talk about is that entrepreneurship is like learning how to play the guitar. So how do you learn how to play the guitar? Do you learn how to play the guitar by reading a book about playing the guitar? No. Do you learn how to play the guitar by going to a concert and watching somebody else play it? No. Do you watch TV about how to play the guitar? No. You learn how to play the guitar by playing the guitar, right? And you play the guitar and you make mistakes. And you make mistakes. And, you know, people, when you first start playing the guitar, people are like, stop the noise. That's horrible. But you keep playing. You keep playing because you like playing the guitar. You play it because you like the playing. And you get better at it. You start small. And you play some songs that you like. And then you play some other songs. Then you find some other people to jam with. And you find some new songs from them. And you play some more. And you play till you get calluses. And you play till your fingers bleed. And that's how you become a guitarist. The same thing is true of entrepreneurship. You become an entrepreneur because you do it. You become better at spotting opportunities because you're looking. And the more you look around, the more you see. The more you try to do things, the better you get at doing stuff. You try to figure out, like, all these skills that you're learning about in class. The more you practice them, the better you are at doing it. And so, like, you got to get out there and do stuff. And so, you know, practice, and you're going to fail. Failure is good. Embrace the failure. I love failure. It's like playing the guitar. Again, like, the more you fail, like, eventually you're going to run out of ways to screw up. But you got to push yourself. You know, like, you're jamming, you're like, oh, I'm going to try this new thing. It didn't work. It's okay. We love you anyway. You know, you move on and you get better at it the next time. So get out there, do stuff, practice, go forth, act. Okay, leave you with some inspiration. So most of the products and services that you will buy in 5 to 10 years haven't been invented yet. Now, you might be too young to remember this, but a lot of the things that you think about and use today weren't around 15 years ago, right? Like cell phones, right? How did people live before cell phones? Trust you, people lived before cell phones. 15, 20 years ago, nobody even knew that cell phones were coming. Global warming. Oh my God, the world's going to get too warm. 20 years ago, nobody was talking about global warming. 20 years ago, everybody remember what was the environmental crisis 20 years ago? Hole in the ozone layer. Does anybody even remember that? You see, you're too young to even remember that. Oh my God, we're all going to die from the hole in the ozone layer, and none of you have ever even heard of it, right? 10 years before that, we were all afraid of global cooling, right? And there was lots of data. The world's getting colder, the world's getting colder. And it made sense. You know, there's pollution. The pollution goes up into the atmosphere. The sun's radiation bounces off the pollution. The world's getting colder. They show data, the world's getting colder. Ah, the world's getting colder. No, 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 it's a hole in the ozone layer. No, 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 this week it's global warming. 20 years ago, who knows what it'll be? Maybe it'll still be global warming. Maybe it'll be something else. Muslim extremism. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. Muslim extremism. I mean, you know, excuse me. I mean, when was Muhammad born? 1,000 years ago? Like, they didn't just invent Islam in your lifetime, right? We've had Muslims around for a long time. This week, Muslim extremism, the world's coming to an end. 10 years ago, nobody was talking about Muslim extremism. 10 years from now, who knows what the issue is going to be? I don't know. Probably won't be Muslim extremism anymore. It'll probably be something else. So, you know, one thing we know is that technology is moving at such an incredible pace that things are happening faster than we know. So, for example, we know that the speed of a processing unit is doubling every 18 months, right? You've all heard this, Moore's law, right? The speed is doubling every 18 months. But what else is happening? The cost is being reduced in half every 18 months. The size is being cut in half every 18 months. The price is being cut in half every 18 months. Bandwidth is doubling every 18 months. The price of bandwidth is going down by half every 18 months. Well, like, this is simple math, right? Within 10 years, we're going to have almost infinite processing power, infinite speed, infinite bandwidth, almost zero cost, in a device small enough to fit inside your nose. Well, what are we going to do with these devices? I don't know what we're going to do with these devices. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming. These are the things I can predict. Like, these are the things I can predict. In the next 10, 15 years, we're going to have cheap water, non-invasive health devices, pilotless cars. When I first talked about this a year ago, people were laughing at me until Google came out, right? Google Glasses. What's the world going to be like when everybody has always recording everything you've ever said? Oh my God, arguments with your wife are going to get really ugly then. And we're going to have this, like, instantly recording everything that ever happens. You know, cures for cancer, new life forms, all these, this is the stuff we know about. And this isn't even the stuff that we can't predict. So my question is, who's going to do all this? Who are the entrepreneurs that are going to invent these new things and discover these new things and commercialize all these new things? I guess nobody in this room, huh? The answer is you, of course, right? Like, I'm too old. All I can do is talk about this stuff and try to spark a spark somewhere. But, like, I can't give you the spark. You got to decide that you want to have that spark. And so hopefully I've been able to maybe get you thinking about having a spark, thinking about the ability to create that future. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So thank you very much. Any questions about anything? Comments? Please.
And first, I want to apologize to you because I didn't want to be, you know, unpolite saying that. I was joking. And then
it's all okay. I'm used to the heckling. I love heckling.
Well, I think that's, you know, seems like a fairy tale, you know, because okay, let's, you know, be successful, set goals, and stuff, and you know, all the stuff. I think it's important, the story and the environment, because in Italy, I was talking about the university, and it's all about books, reading books, doing classes and exams. In my personal experience, the first time I experimented a real experience. Really good, class. It was with Matteo. I don't want to be, but it's real because we touch, things, for the first time, and I got 24 years. So I think in Italy we can't be so ready, for bring ideas, being successful. It's all about the history. I want to go abroad because in here I don't see any future for me. I'm so negative. Okay, I think it's like this in here. Thank you.
I think that I think that there's so first of all, 50% of all professors are below average. You guys like that? Nobody's laughing at that. By definition, 50% are below average, right? Like 50% are above average, 50% are below average. That was a joke. Okay. I apologize for the joke. I think that a lot of people have gotten a lousy education. I think a lot of students have been taught, shut up, listen, learn how to follow rules, learn how to write the way we teach you how to write, learn how to think the way we teach you how to think. The answer is in the back of the book. Shut up, and maybe you'll learn what the answers in the back of the book are. And certainly in engineering, very often that's the way things go. That, like 1 and 1 equals 2, this is how you differentiate an equation, this is the answers that you need to know. And I think that that's a real problem in the educational system. I think that a lot of students, whether they were taught that or not, that's what they learned. What they learned was just do what you're told, don't think, don't be in charge of your own learning, only try to guess what the answers are in the professor's head. And I think that that's a real problem. I think that that's changing. I think that there's a couple of disciplines that are on the leading edge of a new way of teaching. Certainly, Matteo gave me a tour today of the Reggio Emila method in the nurseries and the kindergartens, and that sounds wonderful. That sounds great. Certainly, nursing and healthcare practitioners like doctors and entrepreneurship are leading the way in terms of how to educate people to be creative. I think design thinking as well. I've learned a lot about design thinking. Teaching people how to think, teaching people how to think for themselves, and teaching how people to be in charge of their own education. And so this is a new thing. And I have to say, some of my colleagues, and I think we're pretty good at my university, but even some of my colleagues are like, nope, you got to teach them to do this and this and this and this, and if they're late for class, like lock the door, and like you have to teach students how to follow the rules. And I say, I'm not their dad. I'm there to help guide them on their entrepreneurial journey. I'm here to try to inspire them. And if you haven't learned by the time you're 24 to show up on time, I'm not going to teach it to you. So I don't even try. And so I try to give people, students, a sense of their own empowerment, that you're in charge of your education. And so, for example, I videotape all of my classes. And I tell my students, if you don't want to come to class, don't come to class. Like, you're an adult. You know what's best for you. I don't know what's best for you. Like, if you want to watch it at home, watch it at home. If you don't want to watch it, I don't care. And so, but I think a lot of people kind of sort of go through life. Well, I'll put it like this. When you're a child, you think like a child. And you're in an adult's world. And as a child, you have to conform to what everybody else tells you. And you have to live by everybody else's rules. And your job as a child is to make everybody else happy, to do what they tell you to do. But at a certain point in time, you have to become an adult. And as an adult, you're in charge of your life. You're in charge of your education. You're in charge of your future. You're in charge of your philosophy. You're in charge of your religion. You're in charge of who you sleep with. You're in charge of what you put in your body. You're in charge of whether you have a child or not. You're in charge of all of these things. And everybody else that disagrees with that is just wrong. So anybody else that tells you, no, I'm going to tell you what to do, right? And so I think that's a big transition from childhood to an adulthood. And I think that a lot of people in university, they're just kind of getting through that phase. They're kind of, you know, at 18, probably still acting like a child. At 24, God, I hope you're starting to act like an adult. But like, there's this big kind of transition you have to go through. And part of it, again, is your hand is on the wheel of your life. And so, you know, if you think the opportunities are in the United States, go to the United States. You think they're in Canada, go to the United States. You know, or so, you think it's in Canada, go to Canada, right? It's all about going to the United States. I don't care where you want to go. Go to Germany. But, you know, I mean, you're in the EU, right? You know, I mean, they're begging for people in Germany, I can tell you. Like, unemployment is crazy low in Germany. They're begging for people. And so, and in Calgary, in Canada, like, unemployment rate is it's like 0.5%. Like, the average starting salary for somebody with a bachelor's degree in engineering is over $100,000 a year in Calgary. And they can't fill the jobs. Like, they just can't find people. So, you know, if you don't think Italy's the place to be, God bless you, leave, right? Don't complain about it, right? I mean, maybe other people like it here. Like, let them make their own choices. But, you know, maybe someday, you know, you'll think, si mangia bene a Bologna. You know, maybe it's a good time to, you know, come back to Bologna at a certain point in time or raise your kids or something like that. But, you know, it's a great big wide world out there. You know, go find it. So I guess, yeah, you didn't really have a question, so I don't really have to have an answer.
It was because we were talking about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, entrepreneurship. Imprenditorialità. Yeah.
But it's not my career passion, and just because it's that, I mean, we all do it better. And then okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, so when I talk about success, this is a problem a lot of my students have. Like, I talk about success, right? Like, live the life the most successful you want to have. And I think there's a problem a lot of students in particular have, that they don't believe that they're supposed to be happy. And they don't believe success is necessarily a good thing. Like, somehow success is kind of dirty. Like all those bankers that make money, right? Like that. But like, somehow success doesn't feel healthy to them. And I think that's a real problem. Like, especially if you're going to study business and you want to start up your own business and you want to take charge of your own life. Like, you got to be proud of who you are. You got to be proud of what you do. And if you think you're doing something that's dirty, you're not going to be happy doing it. And so, you know, I think there's a certain like power of business, the power of you know, all this stuff that I talked about, both in your own life and in a business. Like, it's a power for good. You can use it for evil if you choose, but, you know, certainly it's a power for good. You know, all the technology, all the medicine, all the conveniences that we had, you know, this was all some group of entrepreneurs saying, hey, let's do this cool new thing. And anyway.
Steve, I have a question. You mentioned before that you run a volunteer organization that is entirely made by students. And I was fascinated that the students are like doing the job to actually do stuff. And can you share with us some of the things that are behind that? Because probably it's really inspiring how by doing the thing that they learn, they were able to then be proud of it.
Has anybody heard of SIFE, Students in Free Enterprise? It's now called Enactus. Have you heard of this? So it's an international organization. Basically, it's it's a competition for university students. And so a university starts a SIFE team or an Enactus team. And the competition is basically helping other people through the positive power of business. So helping other people by training them in financial literacy skills, or helping them start up a business, or helping them raise financing, or helping them clean up the environment, or something like this. So it's a social entrepreneurship activity. So it's a nonprofit organization. And so our SIFE team started up, and the first year we sold Red Bull out of the refrigerator, and we kind of went, hey, we're gonna do something cool about entrepreneurship. And they basically had a couple parties, drank some beer, came in last place. But looked at the other teams and said, wow, some of these other teams are doing some cool stuff. Like at 20 years old, you can do some really impressive stuff. And so over the years, we grew and got more people involved in it. And so what we do now is so it's run by the students. So I'm the faculty advisor. But I tend to think of myself as a money laundering operation for my students, because nobody wants to write a big check to a bunch of students because they're afraid that they'll spend it all on beer or something like that. But if they write it to a professor at a university and it's written to Ryerson University, that somehow it'll be okay. And so we get money from private industry, right? Places like, you know, Ferrari or Porsche or stuff like that. And they want to find out who the best students are. Like, that's all they care about. Like, you know, I mean, we're going out in the community and doing cool stuff, but what the companies really care about is they want to steal my best students. Because my students graduate. So, for example, this year, the president can graduate, and she can say, I ran a team of 125 people. We raised $500,000. We helped start up 100 new businesses. We helped them raise over $1 million. We're embedded in 17 different institutions. We helped at-risk youth. We helped disadvantaged children. We helped disabled children. We helped Aboriginals. We flew to Kenya and started up a microfinancing bank in Kenya. Taught them about bee farming and solar panels and stuff like that. And this is all done by students. And it's amazing. You know, there's a certain thing that you can do when you're a student, that people love students. Like when a student calls and says, hi, I'm working as a volunteer in this organization, and we want to go to Kenya and help some villagers do this, you know, make their lives better. We're trying to raise $5,000. People are like, oh, yeah, sure, I'd love to help you out. You know, once you graduate, I think it's harder. But like there's a certain, I don't know, communities and businesses, they love students. And I think that you're all more powerful than you think you are. I think that you're capable of doing more than you think you are. You're capable of picking up the phone and accomplishing anything you want to do. And you know, you go to any of these websites, and you know, I can give you some links or whatever, and you see the kind of stuff that my students are doing. They're the same as you, right? I mean, they're 24 years old. They're taking classes. Many of them work full time for a living, and they do this volunteer thing. And you know, they're living on their own, and they're doing their own cooking and their cleaning and their own laundry and all this kind of stuff. But you know, there's something magical. Like if I stand up in front of a group of 21-year-old black mothers, and I tell them my stories, they're like, yeah, whatever. But one of my students, who's 22 years old and black, stands up in front of this group and says, I'm on my own. I do my own cooking and cleaning. I work full time. I've got student loans. I can do it. Why can't you do it? Suddenly, like there's a recognition that, wow, you can do it, I can do it. Whereas like some old white guy telling them what to do, they're like, they kind of sort of tune out. And so a lot of my students have this deep connection, especially with people their age group, that like it's amazing. They've really reached out to help people that are unemployed, Aboriginals that like, they grow up on the reserve and they've got no hope. They've got no hope. Like they think, you know what life is about? Life is about like putting gasoline in a big can and breathing it until you pass out. Like that's their idea of a fun time. And they can't think beyond that. Like that's their life. That's all they look at. That's all they know. And suddenly they get somebody their same age who says, you know what? Come on into Toronto and I'll show you a good time. And I'll show you what I can do. And suddenly like you're changing people's lives. And you can really do it. It's really magical. And my students have an ability to change lives that I don't have because they're that kind of sort of that same age group. And so maybe I can change some 50-year-olds' lives. I don't know.
If I may interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm of course for volunteering, obviously, but in a way, we have shortcomings in Italy. Like, I've studied in 2 UK universities. What you have there is student unions. Student unions run libraries, run the restaurants, the pubs, the laundry. They run all the services on campuses. And what I found the most amazing when they opened a new university in town, not this one, it was they gave the little bar they had to manage to an old white 60-year-old man instead of giving it to the student union. So this is, in a way, I think the students, this is the land of cooperative, mutual companies. And I think the students, beside the radio, whatever, you're not really doing much to put you together a fight to get back the spaces for yourself and to run them yourselves, because this is what they do in UK university. They run the place. It's their place. And it's, yes, it can be helped, but why not doing it? I mean, why not start from here? And we're not talking about volunteering. I'm talking about getting paid for doing a job.
You know, it's some places are always harder and some places are always easier. That's certainly true. That's just reality. It's harder to do things in certain places and it's easier to do things in other places. But, you know, you are where you are, right? You can make your life better or you can choose not to make your life better. You can choose to find a way to develop these skills that are good for you, or you can choose not to. And whatever your choice is, it's your choice. So yeah, it's easier in the UK. And, you know, at my university, the thing that's great about my university is our president loves students. And so when my president barely knows my name, right? It's, but if my students want a meeting with the president, he takes a meeting every time. And when they say, we want to go to Kenya, we want you to help, he's like, great, what can I do? Well, we need money. He's like, let me pick up the phone and call some people for you. And it happens. And some universities, they don't have a president like that. But you know what? They do it as well. They might not do it as big, they might not do it as much, but they still do it. And it's, yeah, it's all about just deciding what you want and knowing that you can do it. And at least you know, yeah, if you don't try, you'll always fail. So, I mean, you got to at least start. And that's why I think when you first asked me the question, what's the hardest part? What's the hardest part of being an entrepreneur? So she said, I think the hardest part about an entrepreneur is having an idea. I said, no. The hardest part is acting. The hardest part is picking up the phone and calling somebody, knowing that they'll probably hang up on you. The hardest part is just doing stuff.
Okay. We thank Steve, and as always, we have a formal end of the event, which doesn't mean that it's ended. It means that if somebody needs to leave, it's free to leave. But we continue our conversation over the aperitivo, and we really thanks Steve for his inspiration.
Thank you very much. Thanks.